Nau mai, haere mai. Welcome to 3 News. New figures out today show just under 30,000 New Zealanders left for Australia last year. It's the highest annual outflow in more than a decade. Acting Prime Minister David Seymour acknowledges it's not a good sign for the country, but says he believes there are better days to come as the economy recovers from recession. Political correspondent Zane Small reports.
Famed for its golden beaches and top surf spots, the Gold Coast is where Kiwis Danielle and Gary McKenzie have lived for more than a decade. And it's where their son Travis calls home.
Whoa!
We've got really good beaches and the weather is just so nice.
But the Queensland sunshine wasn't the only drawcard. Danielle works in purchasing in an office role. She says the pay in Australia is superior.
The wages were just so much better. I know people that have moved over and doubled their wage with a very similar job, so that speaks for itself.
New migration figures out today speak for themselves too.
Statistics New Zealand reports a net migration loss of 30,000 Kiwis to Australia in the year to December 2024. That's the biggest annual outflow since 2012, when 43,700 people made the move.
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise the union representing nurses either, because they're being lured in their thousands across the ditch with better pay and conditions.
The last data we could get hold of was 23-24, and there was just under 12,000 nurses, according to what we were told by the Australian authorities. And we've little reason to believe that that's got any better, and as conditions here continue to get worse, we'll see a lot more going.
It's always a bad sign to be losing people. However, New Zealand is a net gainer of people over the same period, with 14,800 net migration inwards from the rest of the world.
But Trade Me has observed a decline in median weekly rents, particularly in Wellington, where renters are paying around $50 less per week when compared to a year ago. And the exodus of Kiwis in the capital to Australia could help to explain it.
We've seen demand for rental properties fall over the past 12 months, and it's possible that Kiwi choosing to move abroad is one of the factors.
We are going through a difficult period. Yes, incomes in New Zealand are lower than they are in Australia, and that partly reflects things like much lower productivity relative to Australia and other countries as well. The cost of living here is a real issue.
There is a big and significant difference in wages, not just for nurses, but right across the economy.
The government is banking on better times to come as mortgage holders roll onto lower interest rates.
I expect that as time goes on, as we maintain really careful spending as a government, as interest rates come down, rents get lower, mortgage rates are coming down, there's a lot more reasons for people to stay in New Zealand.
But for now, Australia just keeps luring Kiwis across the ditch.
And Zane, we'll find out tomorrow if nurses will strike over pay.
That's right. As you heard in my story, the Nurses Union is not convinced that conditions are getting better for nurses here. There are 36,000 public hospital nurses that are part of the union, and this week they've been voting on whether to strike over Health New Zealand's latest offer, as it appears negotiations have failed to reach an agreement. The biggest concern, I'm told, is safe staffing issues, and union members are voting on whether to strike for 12 hours on the 30th of July. Voting closes at midday tomorrow.
And in our One News Varian poll, it's a coalition comeback, surging back to a governing majority as the three-party coalition approaches the halfway mark of its first term in office. New Zealand First is the big winner, including leader Winston Peters. Nationals regained voter confidence, while Labour's Chris Hipkins is also gaining momentum. Here's political editor Mikey Sherman with the exclusive numbers and reaction.
With the halfway point in sight, which parties are getting a second wind and which political leaders are getting a stitch? National is up 2 points on 36%, Labour down 1 on 32. That's a 4-point difference. And it's worth noting in our last poll, the gap between the pair closed by 7 points. National here regains almost half that, but not all of it. The Greens and ACT remain steady, 10 and 9% respectively. New Zealand First springing up 2 points on 7%, the party's highest result in nearly 8 years. Te Pāti Māori dipping by 1 point, now 3%, and rounding it off, the Opportunities Party and Freedom's New Zealand are both steady. Let's swing this way now to see how many seats each party gets in the House, assuming that Te Pāti Māori hold their 6 electorate seats. National on this side in blue gets 44 seats, the ACT Party in pink gets 11, New Zealand First 9, that's a total of 64 seats beyond the 62 needed to form a government. Noting the 2-seat overhang in this poll. On the other side, the opposition benches has Labour 40 seats in red, the Greens get 12, Te Pāti Māori 6, all up that's 58 seats, not enough to get a look in. Let's bring up the preferred Prime Minister numbers now. Christopher Luxon is up 1, but at 23%, he's still facing a tough crowd. Chris Hipkins is up 3 points to 20%, his highest result in a year and a half. Winston Peters continues his party's strong results, up 2 points on 7%. Meanwhile, down 2 points is Chloe Swarbrick on 4%, the co-leader under pressure last week over the Benjamin Doyle scandal. Taking an even bigger hit though, David Seymour down 3 points to 3%. The school lunches minister getting a serve of his own. Hanarāwhiti Maipi Clark steady on 1%. So that's how the numbers are looking, with politicians needing to dig deep for the second half of the term. On the global stage in India last month, Christopher Luxon was in his element.
Getting out to India, getting out to Vietnam, getting out to the UAE just this year alone has been really important.
The PM more comfortable trying to close a trade deal than dealing with questions over Andrew Bailey's ministerial resignation.
Why can't you just answer the question? Well, see, this is why you get yourself reputationally in so much trouble.
Despite that disastrous interview, the government's Global Investment Summit in Auckland and a good innings in India allowed Luxon to finally get a clear run.
I'm here to get things done and deliver for New Zealanders, and if I do that job right, they'll make a decision in 2026 that actually they're better off under this government.
I think the economy is just starting to cautiously improve, and maybe these polls reflect that as well.
While Labour dipped slightly, the party's maintained much of the ground it gained early in the year.
Labour's supporters rebounding from the last election, but we know we've got more work to do.
Chris Hipkins making a loud statement, up 3 points as preferred Prime Minister.
My job is to get as many votes for Labour as I possibly can.
While his State of the Nation speech was hijacked by protesters, Winston Peters says his work on the US stage helped soften Trump's tariff blow on New Zealand.
It's no use screaming about it. Our job is to get in front of it and make sure that at the end we do better than others.
Winston Peters is trying to be New Zealand's answer to Donald Trump.
It's his questioning of Green MP Benjamin Doyle, though, that got his supporters all fired up.
Look, we saw some appalling information and decided that the public should know about it.
It's pretty clear what the DPM's priority is here, and it's getting headlines and stirring up controversy.
Similar to last year, the Green Party cannot keep out of the headlines while blaming anyone but themselves.
But we've been trying to pitch stories about climate change to get into the news, sometimes multiple times a week, and oftentimes they're considered too complex or difficult to get across in sound bites.
Chloe Swarbrick's sound bites came under fire during the Doyle debacle. She drops 2 points.
Mate, I'm focused on the issues that matter to people and getting out there on the ground and building trust with people.
David Seymour's plunge in the polls, not, he says, due to the problem-plagued school lunches program.
Oh, I doubt it, because most people believe that parents should be feeding their children.
Te Pāti Māori, meanwhile, holding out hope.
It will be the smaller parties that will win the next government, and it will determine the next government. And, you know, we're very determined to be one of them.
Plenty of that optimism from all parties looking for that second wind.
We're almost exactly halfway through this government. A few winners tonight. Who will be happiest?
Well, look, I think there was something in this poll for everyone. Redemption on the right, the government able to regain back that governing majority, but also no major loss on the left. And Chris Hipkins obviously having that strong showing in preferred Prime Minister numbers. So both sides will be happy. For the government, though, this is what it looks like when National isn't distracted by its coalition partners, which has really taken up a lot of the oxygen for the coalition government in the first half of its its first term. So we have seen recently, for example, again, that investment summit for National, also the trade negotiations getting underway with India. Those are positive things. And we're also seeing that Treaty Principles Bill, the controversial Treaty Principles Bill, it'll come back before the House this Thursday for its second reading. That's when National and New Zealand First will kill that bill. They will not want that issue hanging around their necks in the lead up to the May budget next month.
Unusual for Winston Peters to comment on our polls. What can we put that down to?
Well, yes. Well, Winston Peters really is the big winner, you could say, out of this poll. They have polled the highest in the party numbers, but also in preferred Prime Minister numbers. So while the results are convenient for Mr Peters to perhaps give us an interview, really what we wanted to talk to him about was the strategy for New Zealand First going into the second half of this term. We know that Winston Peters is set to hand over the reins for Deputy Prime Minister to David Seymour next month. That's really when we will see that gear shift for New Zealand First. They'll start to switch into campaign mode. Now, we did see a bit of that with the Benjamin Doyle story last week, and it must be said that we polled during that story. So we polled all the way up until Wednesday. Monday and Tuesday is when that story really got some legs. So we did capture the voter sentiment around that, which is probably why we saw that drop for Chloe Swarbrick. But in terms of New Zealand First, expect more of that style of politicking from the party as we head forward.
There's a fight on for Aotearoa's third official language. It's the language that's spoken with the hands and the heart that builds community and connection, and it's already beaten one attempt to wipe it out. That was in Italy in 1880. Experts called for a ban. New Zealand's dark ages for deaf education began.
The unsatisfactory and embarrassing system of sign language was never used.
You know, we would get smacked in our faces, we weren't allowed to sign.
Deaf children have been deprived of their most fundamental, the most basic human right of all, the right to a language. And now, 145 years later, here in Rome, it is time to say no more.
It's a full stop. So why in New Zealand are there still complaints?
I just feel that no one is listening to the parents.
New Zealand can be a third world country sometimes in terms of the actual access that our kids get.
I'm a student. I should not have to interpret if the teachers can't sign.
We want to see change, and the time is now.
Take a look at this news story from about a year ago.
3 young students staged protests in class earlier this month in frustration over a relief teacher's inability to use sign language.
We didn't like it. So we decided to take our cochlear implants off.
So that's what started our investigation, and it opened the floodgates. So reporter Thomas Mead and I got to work talking to dozens of people in the deaf community, parents, teachers, students, and they truly believe, because they've had deaf experience themselves, that they know what's best for deaf children. The lucky ones start young, and the learning keeps going, giving profoundly deaf kids like Alexia the best start.
I don't have to worry about her missing anything. She can focus on the important things, like playing, connection, arguing, telling stories. My daughter is lucky. But 95% of deaf or hard of hearing children are born into hearing families.
Hearing parents can get help from First Signs, a service giving lessons to young families. But there are only 15 facilitators funded by the Ministry of Education for the whole country.
A facilitator will visit a family once a month for 1 hour. 1 hour a month. The brain needs good quality and plenty of language exposure between 0 and 5. If the child doesn't receive language then, there are lifelong consequences.
Sean didn't have that chance. Born deaf to hearing parents, he started school with very limited language.
I would get very angry a lot of the time because no one would kind of get me. I remember a woman coming and she used sign language with me and my jaw just dropped.
Communicating is a basic human need. And if children are turning up to school without much language, it's the school's job to put that right. There used to be separate deaf schools, but since 2020 they've united to become Kōtaka Reo. It covers nearly 4,000 students in mainstream schools who get help from tutors and interpreters. And just 120 in dedicated deaf units, but they're only found in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch. Now, Sean wasn't so keen on mainstream, so aged 11, he switched to one of those deaf units.
I felt like I was in a dream. Like I finally found the right people.
Name 3 types of underwear.
Sean and his parents assumed there'd be fluent signing. Kōtaka Reo says all teachers in deaf units can sign as much as needed. Yet Sean was asked,
"Could you please help us interpret for these 2 boys?" And I was like, okay. It happens often. I was shocked that at Kotaku Reo, they would bring in teachers that didn't understand sign language, that couldn't communicate with us. I'm not blaming the staff. It's just every time we make a complaint, we're ignored all the time.
I myself have seen classrooms that have 0 sign language. And these are classrooms that have been designed for deaf and hard of hearing students.
We were told that 8 months ago. Since then, the teacher says classes have improved as there's some New Zealand Sign Language in all of them, but in their opinion, still nowhere near enough.
These younger students are just beginning their journey and we're already setting them up for failure. Whether they have cochlear implants, hearing aids, it doesn't matter. Having access to that visual language is incredibly important to access the curriculum.
We're using an actor because this person's worried for their job, and fair enough, we know staff have been warned against publicly speaking out.
There is a culture